Hello and good morning to our scientific notation lesson. The first thing that we need to know is whether we have a big or small number. So we have two numbers on the screen. This one's in red and this one's in green. And you just ask yourself, would you want that much money? So this one is 72 million. Would you want $72 million? And this is 7/10 of a penny. Would you want to carry around something less than a penny? So of course, this one's a big number, and that's how much money you want, definitely. And this one is a small number. We don't even want to bother with that much money. All right? So first thing you want to ask yourself in scientific notation is, do we have a big or small number? Then what we want to do is talk about the three parts to the scientific notation. So let's say we have 7.2 times, whoa, okay, that's good. 10 to the power of 5. All right, so 7.2 times 10 to the power of 5. We have three sections. This first number has to be between 1 and 10. All right, so make sure you're writing this in your notes. Then, of course, we have just multiply. This is always going to be 10. And then this last part is our exponent. Remember, we work on a base 10 system. So every time we have this exponent, it's going to tell us how many dippy-doos to do. So that's very important. Make sure you have all this written in your note. So the scientific notation is 7.2 times 10 is your base number and 5 is your exponent. And we're always going to work with base 10 because that's what our number system is built on. So then we come back and combine these two things. And if you have a negative exponent, you're going to have a small number. If you have a positive exponent, you're going to have a big number. So make sure you have those in your notes. When we're doing scientific notation, this year we're not going to have any negative numbers. So keep in mind that if it has a negative exponent, that little floating number, it's not a negative number, it's a small number. So that's important to notice. We're not going to work with any negative numbers this year in scientific notation. So let's do an example. Sometimes you'll have scientific notation you take to a regular number, and sometimes you have a regular number called a decimal number that you'll take to scientific notation. So we're going to start with something very similar to our example. It's 7.2 times 10 to the 7th. And what I like to do is I like to start out with that first number, and I like to write it right in the middle. 7 and 2. Don't put decimal in there quite yet. And I'm going to start with my decimal right here. And this 7 tells me I need to do dippy-doos. 7 dippy-doos. It also tells me, because it's positive, that it's going to be a big number. So I'm going to do 7 dippy-doos this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this is where my decimal is going to end up. And of course, what do we fill in dippy-doos with? We fill them in with zeros. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we can put in some commas in there. Let's change color so we have a clue what's going on here. 1 and 2. So that is our 72 million that we looked at earlier in the lesson. So we know it's a big number because it's a positive, and we went 7 dippy-doos from the original decimal place. So our next example is very similar. It's 7.2 times 10 to the negative 4. So once again, I'm going to start with 7.2 right in the middle of my screen or my paper. And I'm going to start with my decimal right here. But I know that this is going to make a small number. It's still going to be bigger than 0, but it's a small number. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And my decimal is going to be right here. And I'm going to fill in my dippy-doos with zeros. So be careful. The 7 takes up one of the dippy-doos. So I have 1, 2, 3 zeros. So my answer is 0.00072. And if you want to put a 0 in front of the decimal, that's fine as well. So notice this is still a positive. You don't owe anybody money, but it's also less than a penny. So that's what we mean by it's going to be a very small number. Now that was scientific notation into regular numbers. Now sometimes I'll give you a regular number and ask you to put it into scientific notation. So let's take a look at that. So let's say we have 875. So we need a number between 1 and 10. The trick to that is to put the decimal after the first number that's not a 0. So it would be 8.75. And by putting the decimal after that first digit, now this number is between 1 and 10. No big deal. Then we do times 10. Then we have to figure out the dippy-doos. Our decimal starts here, and it goes just right there. So we just have 1. Well, is this a positive 1 or a negative 1? And you got to ask yourself, is this a big amount of money or not a big amount of money? And it's 88 cents, but it's still not huge. And so we are dealing with a negative exponent. And many of the lessons that you're going to see in other videos talk about going to the left and going to the right, and big numbers and small numbers, and scientific notation to decimals and decimals to scientific notation. But I don't know about you, the left and right thing just confuses the heck out of me. So I do big numbers and small numbers. So I know this is a small number, so I'm going to do a negative exponent. So let's take a look at what a big number would look like. So take a good sized number such as 34,000. I'll take that much money if somebody just wants to hand it to me, right? So the first thing we need to do is put a decimal after the first digit that's not a 0. So that number between 1 and 10 would be 3.4. You don't have to include any of the zeros. Ultimately, this is a shortcut for some really big and really small numbers. So we have our number between 1 and 10. Then we do times 10. And then we're going to have an exponent. And we started with our decimal here, and we dippy-dooed 1, 2, 3, 4. So our exponent is going to be 4. Now, since this is a big number, it is a positive 4. We don't have to write the positive, but it is a positive 4. All right, because this is a nice amount of money. Sure, I'd love to get that much money. So what you're going to do today is you're going to watch a few more videos, and then you have a worksheet. And at the top of the worksheet, it asks you about the 3 parts and to identify which ones are scientific notation. So don't forget a number between 1 and 10 times 10, and then an exponent. And so make sure they're multiplication, make sure it says 10 over here, make sure this number is between 1 and 10. Those are all the tricks they're going to use. Then there's a puzzle at the bottom, and I love those because they're kind of self-checking because you have answer choices. But it's kind of a weird one. So make sure you read the directions. It says, circle the letter pair next to the correct answer. Write the uppercase letter in the box containing the lowercase letter. So at the bottom, you see all the lowercase letters, and you're going to write the uppercase letter that was in that correct answer. All right, in that black oval next to correct answer. And then you have some different varieties, and each of them has some multiple choice answers in that same box, and it should answer the puzzle at the bottom. So do the best that you can, help each other out, work as a team, and I hope to see you soon. Have a great day.